Hi, everybody. KSBY meteorologist Dave Hovde. You are in the Weather Center with me this afternoon. We have a newscast tonight at 6 o'clock, but that's still some time from now. So we're going to start a little bit of a discussion here about the storm. I did one earlier this morning over on the KSBY fan page, but I'll handle most of them here for now. Let's talk a little bit about our storm system and just kind of march you through some of the graphics. What you're looking at here on the, I'm just going to make sure that I'm not covering up anything. Okay, I'm not. What you're looking at there on the left-hand side of your screen is the area of low pressure, and you can see that stream of moisture pushing toward the central coast right now. We've already seen some sprinkles beginning on the central coast, and there you can see the stream of moisture heading our direction. No big changes in the forecast. So we've got this atmospheric river pointed at the central coast on a scale of 1 to 5. This is a 3, with 5 being the strongest, 1 being the weakest level of an atmospheric river. And it is going to put flooding rainfall onto the central and south coast. Now, this is an update now from the Weather Prediction Center. If you look at that little sliver of the south coast there, it's in the high percentage range now for flooding. That means the chances for flooding to occur from this event is now greater than 70%. That's a significant increase, and snows for the Sierra. So when do things get going? Well, initially here, it's actually going right now. We do have some scattered showers out there. That area of low pressure will continue to draw closer to the central coast. Now, what's interesting about it is as it draws closer, the jet stream essentially starts tilting like this. And when it does that, the system is going to slow down, and the flow of that moisture, the atmospheric river, will become more perpendicular to the Santa Ynez Mountains and the south coast of Southern California. So it starts raining overnight tonight into tomorrow, in fact, from this afternoon. More so, though, really when that front passes through the area. And that happens anytime from tomorrow morning all the way into the evening. That front is going to slowly drag its way across the area. And that slowness of that drag is going to give that rain the opportunity to just linger in the area. So there you can see on Monday afternoon, it is still raining for parts of the south coast and in Southern California. And then that trough lingers over the area into Tuesday and beyond. It won't rain as hard, but continuing light showers are possible. And once you start flooding, any new rainfall is always not a good idea. So this is the flood watch graphic. California is huge. Remember, some people want to break this up into 7 to 11 different states. Look how much of the state is covered in this flood watch into Monday or beyond for some. On top of that, coastal flooding is going to be an issue tomorrow morning. 4:30 in the morning, we've got a tide of 6.7 to 7 feet, plus 10 plus foot of waves, plus the winds 20 to 40 gusting to 60 miles per hour. That's out of the south. These swells and the tide's going to be bulging as well. That's going to push water into places it does not typically get. We're usually a northwest swell area, so this will be unique. Winds start picking up later on tonight. This is a 9 o'clock projection with wind gusts 25 to 30. Watch how this goes. By midnight, those wind gusts are 30 to 40, and then by Sunday morning, the wind gusts are 45 to 60, and at higher elevations, I think we could even see wind gusts of 70 and 80 miles per hour. This is the kind of wind that can knock down trees, cause power issues, and the like. So you can see even into Sunday night, the winds are significant. So this happened last night. The high wind watch was changed to a warning just because we got inside the 24-hour window. A warning means the activity is either happening or imminent. In this case, it is imminent. 35 to 45, gusting to 65, isolated gusts to 80, as we talked about before. Storm outlook. This is your thunderstorm potential assessment. So we're in the marginal category, which is enough to take seriously. And then there's also some isolated non-severe thunderstorm activity possible into Monday as well. That's a look at the radar. You can see some of the lighter activity coming in. Remember, radar intensity is coded by color. So where you see the greens here, these are sprinkles. But inside of that, you can see just off the central coast, there are some areas now being identified as yellow. And so our model is picked up on this really well. We call it initialization. When the model initializes well, it means that it's taken a nice snapshot of the meteorology. So let's set it into motion. You can see that the light rainfall becoming a little more moderate between now and 6 o'clock. By the time we get into 10 and 11, we might enter a bit of a gap. I'm actually going to redo this here. I don't have enough stops set up in my animation, so I'm going to do it manually here. So again, by 10, 11 o'clock, that initial showery phase might end briefly. But after midnight now, this is when the cold front starts pushing across the area. So middle of the overnight, remember the winds are now starting to crank, and now we're getting the rainfall, pockets of heavier rainfall across the area. This is Sunday morning at 8 a.m. This is a time frame where some of the rainfall rates are probably going to start getting up there to 0.3 to a half an inch per hour. And once we get into the early morning hours of Sunday into Sunday afternoon here, this is really going to be a time we get drilled really hard here across the area as that front continues to drag through. Now, things will look like they're winding down a bit as we get into Sunday evening. But again, you can just see there's more and more on and off shower activity continuing all the way into the early morning hours of Monday. So it may slow a little bit, but it's not going to turn off entirely. So from what we just saw there, this is our 3-kilometer modeling that says by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, we're already an inch in the interior to 3.5 to 5 inches on the south coast, anywhere 1 to 4 inches for the central coast. But when we keep this going through Sunday night into Monday, now you can see how it's starting to add up. And the interesting thing is this projection, if anything, is, let's call it conservative, because the forecast being called for by the National Weather Service, let me drag it over there for you. One moment. The Weather Service forecast is for 3 to 6 inches. This is through Tuesday, with 6 to 12 inches in the foothills and mountains. And I still think that's a pretty good forecast. On top of that, we're talking about these huge wind gusts, seas of 10 to 20 feet, with the swell direction switching from the northwest to the southwest. And the peak heights here for the central coast being 12 to 18 feet on Sunday. So stay clear, stay out of the ocean, don't turn your back to it, that sort of thing. And then this is also a really nice graphic here. It talks about rain timing and intensity. So for San Luis Obispo County, you can see the heavy rain potential from Sunday 6 a.m. through noon, and then noon through 6. I agree with this. Now, what it's identified for Santa Barbara County is same time frame, but in the very heavy category, with this being highlighted as a high risk for life-threatening and damaging flooding. Rainfall again, 3 to 6 inches, except 6 to 12 inches for mountains and foothills. Peak rain rates, ½ inch to 1 inch per hour at times, locally to 1.5 inches per hour. That doesn't mean for the whole hour, but it does mean that we could see those rainfall rates briefly. And confidence in snow levels here, pretty high confidence, but they're really quite high. 6,500 to 7,500 feet Sunday, lowering to 4,000 feet by Wednesday. One other thing to note here, both for SLO and Santa Barbara County, you see how the rainfall potential continues all the way through Wednesday. Even though we're going to get into quote-unquote generally light activity from Monday through Wednesday, again, a lot of these problems just kind of exacerbate. So let's take that out of there. Let me switch over and show you something we don't always show. This is a look at the latest computer model run of something called the GFS computer model. And we're just going to kind of scroll through it here. So there's our storm system just off the central coast. And it's going to continue rainfall through Tuesday. That's Tuesday afternoon. Now it breaks off into scattered activity. There's another low that drops out of the Washington, Oregon area along the coastline to keep activity going on Thursday. And then a little bit of a break. And then it looks like we get a more extended break in activity as we get into next week. A ridge of high pressure builds in. But then we're going to have to watch this other system down here. On Saturday the 17th, there's a system that really wants to kind of come up from the south. We'll have to watch that. Looks like it stays to the south at this point. But obviously, if we get drilled by anything serious here, that'll be a problem as well. So just going back, and I'm going to cover what I think the basics are. I think the big concerns here are when does it rain? combination of rain and wind and flooding. So the big story today is that we are now identified as a high-risk area by the Weather Prediction Center for the Santa Barbara County South Coast, Central Coast being in a moderate flooding risk that's still greater than 40%. For the South Coast, it's 70%. We do have watches in place for flooding, including coastal flooding. We could see thunderstorms both Sunday and Monday. The heavier rains don't really start until we get into Sunday morning, but we will see lighter showers starting here earlier. And then as we get into Sunday morning, all the way into mid to late afternoon, it's the heaviest rainfall potential with those high rain rates we talked about. And again, the winds are going to be no joke. We're talking about winds gusting 40 to 60 miles per hour on Sunday morning. There's a high wind warning for that. So don't be surprised. Power outages, those sorts of things are all things that can happen. We're going to be sharing pretty much this forecast with you again at 6 and 10 and 11 here on KSBY. There's a lot of coverage about the new evacuation orders and warnings for Santa Barbara County. There's some mandatory activity that it needs to be taken there. And again, that's over at ksby.com. And then during the event tomorrow, we've got the full crew working. Richard will join me here at work. Today's more of a preview of everything. Get you ready. Make sure you're safe. Get all those advisories out to you. And then we just have to get through it together. And again, panic never is a good thing. Obviously, we're talking about lots of potential here. Maybe all of it is realized. Maybe only some of it is. It wouldn't be the worst case scenario if we didn't get hit as hard. But we do need to prepare for potentially the heaviest stuff. I think if you can avoid your exposure, make sure that you're inside. Make sure you're ready for a power outage. There's still time to go out there and get some durable foods, that sort of thing. Batten down the hatches. If you're worried about flooding, there's still time to sandbag, get ready for those kind of things. But those hours are beginning to shrink up here a little bit. Again, thank you so much for spending some time with me today here on Facebook, and more details over at ksby.com. Have a great day.